about a famous Italian Jewish writer and essayist. His name was Amos Luzzato, obviously from the Luzzato family, famous family in of itself. Now, I'm speaking about him today because actually tomorrow it's going to be the Hilula of his great-great-grandfather, the Shadal, Rabbi Shmuel David Luzatto. But it seems like he's got an interesting story, a lot of Jewish heritage. He was one very much involved with the Jewish community in itself. He was an essayist. Seemed like his history was very much into it, and came from very decorative family, let's just say, in of itself, of famous, let's just say, people all throughout the few hundred years previously. So he was born, I believe, on the 3rd of June in 1928. He passed away in 9th September 2020. I believe at the time that was the 20th of Elul. Obviously, he was a famous Italian Jewish writer and essayist, and was born from a family of ancient tradition, you could say. Now, it's interesting. His mother's father was someone named Dante Latte. Very interesting. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Now, I believe he was a scholar. He was a publicist. He was a journalist. He was one of the most prominent editors, let's just say, and representatives of the Italian Jewish community. He lived between 1876 and 1965. I believe we've spoken about him before on this series already. He much can be said with regards to him. I believe he happened to have spread really Zionism all throughout Italy. He was very famous within regards to that. So obviously he was, I think he would be one of the leaders of the Jewish community in of itself. And he was quite close to the famous other rabbi, I believe, Rabbi Eliyahu ben Mose. I think a rabbi we've spoken about before on various occasions before. I think he studied in Jewish seminary. Also, he was part of the World Jewish Congress. He had connections to. He was one of the vice presidents, I think, of U.S. Union of Jewish Communities in Italy, and was the director of the Rabbinical Seminary in Italy, and wrote various different books. So that's already interesting. He was he came from pedigree from his grandfather's side there. We're going to speak about the Shadal, how he was connected to the Shadal as a class progresses over here. But he was, let's just say, one of the most important representatives of Jewish culture, you could say, during the 20th century. Obviously, we're going to speak about the Shadal. He was a great-great-grandfather. He was famous for teaching in the Rabbinic College in Padua, and was the Italian representative of the Wissenschaft des Judenteurs, I think it was 19th century movement in of itself, of Jewish literature and culture in of itself, and Rabbinic literature. Let's explore some of the highlights of the life of this famous physician. Now, he would live in Jerusalem until, I believe, the year 1946. Now, he was obviously born in Rome, but obviously at one point in time he'll go to Jerusalem. For more than 40 years, he would work as a surgeon in several Italian hospitals. He was a university lecturer and a chief physician. He would devote his studies, especially to the applications of mathematical systems, to medical clinical researchers, let's just say, in of itself. Now, he'd like to see himself as an expert within regards to Jewish culture. He insisted above all on modern Jewish identity, which according to him had increased the value and had brought affirmation to the category of national identity together with the religious thing. Now, obviously, we very much believe in a very strong Orthodox lifestyle here in this channel, and I'm not too sure what his actual hashkafa was in of itself, but I think he would admire, let's just say, more thinkers of the kinds like Ahad Ha'am and Bialik, respectively. Also, Bialik was a famous Russian Jewish poet of his time, as someone mentioned about before, and Ahad Ha'am was also known as he was very, the founder of culture, Zionism, let's just say, in of itself, and had a lot of great Jewish pride, and he was like a pre-state Zionist thinker, in of itself. Now, he believed that his national identity should develop in continuity with Jewish history and tradition, and urged, he really believed that people should also study not only just Hebrew language, like many, let's say, of the Zionists believed in, but he did believe in Midrashic, Talmudic literature to learn, and Torah in of itself. He would translate, reported over, and commented on the book of Job. I think this was in 1991, and the Song of Songs, Shir Hashirim, 1997. he would, so he was obviously famous. The Peace of the Jews, I think there was another book, and an interview book, I think to do with science and politics, would have been formed in 2003. It's actually interesting. I think he would contribute personal essays in the books Left Wing and Jewish Question, I think in 1989. The Modern Jews, I think 1989. Besides the Ghetto in 1992. And I think various other places also now. It's interesting. He took part with personal reports in several international conferences on Jewish culture subjects. He would held a course on Jewish literature in the University of Venice, I think concentrating on Medrash, Department of Religious History, and organized Socrates, European Master in Archaeology and Dynamics of Writing. Now, I think, so that's very interesting. So he was editor-in-chief of I think it was called the Rassanje Minsal de Israel. This is very interesting. I personally haven't actually heard of this, itself previously, just to what I'm saying here, but that was apparently a position that he would have over there, respectively. So another interesting, just tidbit to give with regards to him. I think between 1998 and June to February 2006, he was president of the Union of Italian Jewish Community. So what is this organization over here? I think it's a national association that represents over 20 Jewish community associations in Italy. So he had obviously prestigiousness, let's say, all throughout the different cities in Italy. He was one of them. I think he was for 8 years. It would be taken over by Tullio Zebi afterwards. I think after he would take over Tullio Zebi, and then someone named Renzo Gettigona, I think, would take his position for 10 years also. So I think that this committee would represent places like Milan, Genoa, Florence, Ferrara, and various other places also in Italy. So he was quite, let's just say, famous on that front also. So I think there's various events, especially to celebrate Holocaust Remembrance Days nowadays, that actually take place with regards to remembering him. So we're going to speak about the Shadal in a minute, because he happens to have been his grandfather. I think it's important to obviously speak about him in and of itself. He was seen as a polymath. That's one thing for sure. He was a surgeon for decades, a writer, obviously university lecturer. He would have, I believe, different stints as a president of the Union of Italian Jewish Communities. And he was a son, I think his mother was he was a son of someone named Leon Michel, I think a left-wing intellectual, and Mila Lina Latte, who we said before. Latte was obviously the father was, I think, a thinker, obviously, and obviously great Jewish roots on both sides of the family. I think all the way they will be traced back to Southeast Germany, back to the 15th century, if I'm not mistaken. And the Shadal we're going to speak about in the coming minutes, he was a beacon of Jewish thought, let's just say, or he's described like that in of itself. Now, I think he was an anti-racist. He really fought against racism. I think in 1938 there was racial laws that restricted Jewish civil rights and affected Luzzato's life at that point in time. And he was excluded, I believe, from high school. His top marks were rescinded, and he was, I think, kicked out of the school because of anti-Semitism laws, let's just say, in of itself. And I think he would, in 1939, move to Israel. That's when he would move to Israel. Obviously, it was mandatory Palestine then. He would move with his mother and maternal grandparents. They opened a window onto a completely different world. This would actually, I think he was really does recount and chronicle what he actually went through over there, especially during the war years in Israel. And he was, I think, he describes this time period as an intellectually stimulating environment that would have a profound effect or impact on his character and shape of ideas in Judaism. And very much so. That's what's chronicled over here in the Jewish Chronicle. I think he would eventually, in 1946, graduate from medicine and start a successful career as a surgeon, which would last more than 50 years. And obviously, we said that he wrote the books and was president of the community. And I think he would actually, really, his deepness in Jewish culture, he even said himself, would stem, let's just say, from the Bible. in of itself. So you can see he had a lot of prestigious, let's say, important roles in himself. He was married to a woman called Laura וחוקר, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. And I think they had 3 children, Gadi, Elisa, and Michelle, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure too much information within regards to them. But let's speak now a bit about his great-great-grandfather, the Shadal, Rabbi Shmuel David Luzatto, because I happen to speak his Hilula tomorrow, so I thought I'll introduce it by speaking about one of his descendants who happens to be someone like, let's say, a big name in of itself. So yes, so Rabbi Samuel David Luzatto, he lived between 1800 to 1865. He was a famous thinker, you could say, of his time. He obviously known as a Shadal also. He was a poet, a Jewish scholar, and I think when he was young, he was actually born in Trieste, I believe in 1800. He passed away in Padua in 1865. He would study in Talmud Torah when he was young, already at a young age, and he would study Hebrew language at home with his father, and very much he would study various different Torah topics. He would read the book of Job at school, for example. He would write commentaries on various different books. Also, I think he would go into various, like especially in the Torah, he was Hebrew grammar he was into, the Targum of Onkelos, and he will, let's just say, really look into it. I think when he was only 13 years of age, he was withdrawn from school, attending only the Talmud lectures by Rabbi Avraham Eliezer Halevi, while he would actually read the En Yaakov he would learn about, and someone who really go into the sphere of Torah learning. I think his mother sadly passed away in 1814, and he had to take on more household work in himself to help his father. And I think come the end of 1815, he already composed 37 poems. That's something we have to point out with regards to him. So he was really a doer. I think come on 1829, he earned a livelihood by giving lessons and by writing, I think, for the Bikur Ha-Litim, I think, and that was when he was appointed a professor, I think, in that year of the Rabbinical College of Padua. So we've spoken about this Rabbinical College in of itself. So he was in correspondence with various other people over there, and that is a whole topic onto itself. Now, he had a specific view on philosophy. He was a defender, let's just say, of biblical and Talmudic Judaism, and apparently he had some strong opposition to philosophical Judaism, which brought him opponents, let's just say, in of itself, among his contemporaries, and that's something that we need to mention about himself. He would praise Maimonides as author of the Mishnah Torah, and very much talk about him on other sides also, I believe. And he would write various different Torah works. I think specifically correspondences in Hebrew, Italian, German, and French. And he would contribute to most, let's say, of the Hebrew and Jewish periodicals of his time period. Now, I think someone named Isaiah Luzzato published, I think, Padua in 1881, under the respective Hebrew and Italian titles, the Reshimat Mamrei Shadal. I think this is, and other works also, was an index of all articles which Rabbi Luzatto had written in his various periodicals. And very interesting enough, I think the Pnei Shadal, for example, was published by his sons, a collection of 89 interesting letters of Luzatto, interesting enough. So that is something important. He would write many books. We'll state what some of them meant in Hebrew. Kino Na'im, for example, which was printed in Vienna. The Kina, the Ohev Ger, this was another one. Hafla'a Sheba Arachin, the Seder Tanaim, the Betulat Bat Yehuda, for example, the Beit HaOtzar, Hamishtadel. There was various different Torah works. Yad Yosef, for example, the Poroshe Shadal, Nahalat Shadal. This is just a few of the books. He would write various books in Italian also. So he was a famous rabbi of his time, the famous Shadal was. And we actually did record a video on Rabbi Shmuel David Luzatto. I believe he's a great nephew, I believe, or maybe the great nephew. I have to double check on that, of the Ramachal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzatto also. As you can see, he really came from a great, important pedigree in of itself. I think he was a bibliographer also, we can point out, and he was connected with many rabbis of his time. He was influenced by other people, you could say, that were maybe even connected to the Haskalah movement, like including Naftali Hertz Weasel, I believe, who was Hebrew linguist and a poet, for example. He was close to, but there was also other people. I think there was a French philosopher, someone named Etienne Bonnet de Condillac, for example. he would Jean-Jacques, for example, and his spouse's name was Bila Batsheva Sedri, I believe. Interesting enough. So that is that's another important factor also. So he passed away in 1865. We're talking about here from time of recording about 160 years ago. He was, and was very, very well, let's just say, very well known, let's just say, in of itself, in his specific time. That had a key role in the rabbinic seminary in Padua, which is something that we've spoken about on various occasions before here inside the series, which we have to point out. He was a thinker of his time, and he did have students also. He had that specific attitude to immigration to the land of Israel, and he would express letters, I think, to various rabbis, expressing his warm attitude towards returning to Israel, the manual labor, and speaking about Jewish agriculture, for example, the importance within regards to it. Though it's interesting also, more can be said within regard. It's a whole topic onto himself, because we actually did speak to him also, and he had attitudes to different kinds of, let's just say, strands of Judaism also, which I would recommend everyone to also learn with regards to him. He was a famous poet, so many of his songs are very much written, and it's actually chronicled over about all different books he wrote in the various different languages also. So this is the famous Shadal we're speaking about, because it happens to be his Hilula. But we came in speaking about Amos Luzzato, who was a great-great-grandson of him, and had a huge role, let's say, in European society for the Jewish community in his day. So very interesting. Now there's an entire family tree somewhere within regards to the Luzatto family, which I would recommend everyone to look into. Remember, he was, especially you could say the Shadal and the Ramhal, these were two very, very famous people in their stages of time, without doubt, in Jewish history, especially in Italian Jewish history. Those two famous rabbis were, itself. So I recommend everyone to learn more about them. I think we did record at one stage in time, if I'm not mistaken, a video on the history of some of the members of the famous Luzatto family. So that is something we also need to point out over here. So please subscribe to the channel. And it's Hilula of Rabbi Shmuel David Luzatto. And we started off the lecture also speaking a bit about Amos Luzzato, the famous poet. And we used that part of the article from the Jewish Chronicle website, and there's a lot of information with him online within regards to him in of itself. So that's very interesting. So please subscribe, friends. We're nearing 7,500 subscribers here on this channel, which is a staggering achievement we have to point out over here. Please, if you subscribe, you feel anyone is interested in watching any of these videos, please share these videos also to other people. We are currently not just recording videos of famous people of yesterday. We speak about the famous rabbis, also from various different Jewish communities that came in. We try really concentrate on the more North African countries. We try and branch out into the Ottoman countries and so on and so forth. We see the importance of really getting the science behind the different personalities of Jewish and many of the great rabbis also so over there. So please subscribe. Wishing all a Gemach Matova, and thank you for watching. Thanks very much. And to just give over just one more important information, we also do a lot of tours here on this channel. We like to tour all over Israel and just explore the different parts, the different history, the archaeology of this fantastic country. And we try not just to learn the Jewish history in, let's just say, in of itself, in historical lens. We also try and learn it all throughout to get proper breadth in of itself. We also record videos on Parashat Shebua, on the Hebrew month. We try and concentrate on also, and various other different important topics. So wishing you well, thanks for watching, and take care. Thank you.